Hello people of YouTube, it's Deepak here, and welcome to DCS World 2.8.4 and Razbam Simulation's M2000C Mirage module. Welcome to Tutorial 3, Air-to-Air Radar. Today we're going to cover the air-to-air modes, or at least the BVR air-to-air modes of the RDI radar as installed in the M2000C. Now, today we're not going to cover close air combat, target designation, target pursuit modes, or use of the data link. So it'll be just the basic BVR modes without weapons employment. This will form the foundation of everything that we learn after this point. You know, how to make use of the weapons, how to make use of close air combat modes once you've merged, how to make use of the data link, and also how to use target designation and target pursuit modes, which are quite advanced features specific to the mission that the M2000C has, which is intercepting aircraft. So the RDI radar, it has a maximum range of 80 nautical miles, although you can actually display on the screen up to 320 miles. That's predominantly used for the use of the data link and other features, but it'll only pick up targets out to 80 miles, 65 miles in the case of fighter-sized targets. So that's going to be pretty much your maximum range at which you're going to see fighters. It operates in a 60-degree azimuth, left and right, and 55 degrees elevation, up and down. And the VTB, the heads-down display, is capable of displaying 10, 20, 40, 80, 160, and 320 mile ranges. Although, as stated, it can only actually pick up targets out to 80 at the absolute maximum. And it's capable of some of the features that you've seen in other Western radars. You know, the ability to do track while scan, the ability to do a single target track. It's a little bit more basic than some of the American radars, but still I think you'll find it quite capable. So let's jump into the cockpit and go over the display. Okay, so here we are in the cockpit now. I'm going to go over the basic display and then we'll cover the controls. So this is called the VTB. This is the heads down display in the Mirage 2000C. It's pretty much only used for the display of the radar. You can see that I've got my cursor here. This is controlled using the TDC controller on the throttle. But first let's go over the basic symbology we have here. We have our own ship symbol down here, this triangle. This is our aircraft along with a heading tape, much like we have on the HUD. So you can see here that we're currently flying at about 335. You also have this velocity indicator. It gets longer or shorter based on how fast the aircraft is moving. We also have these azimuth lines here. These are giving us the 30 degrees azimuth and 60 degrees azimuth, both left and right. We have the range indicated at the top of the display. We're currently displaying 40 nautical miles. We can control that by bumping the cursor out or bumping it back. We also have controls on the left console for doing that. Left-hand side of the display here, we have the elevation. Current antenna elevation position is here. Number of bars that we're currently scanning is here. We're doing a 2-bar scan. And then this indication is for 30 degrees up, 30 degrees down, and then you've got 40, 50, and the radar tops out at 55. So the maximum you can move the antenna is somewhere down to about here. And if I use the antenna elevation controls, you can see that indication moving around. It also moves around during the bar scans as well. So that's what that does. You can then actually see the sweep of the radar based on this arc here. There's like a little blank part that moves left and right. You've got your current PRF mode. We're currently in high frequency. You've got the channel currently selected by the radar. Radar is currently operating in channel 97. This is important for deconflicting yourself with other Mirages. We have the currently pre-selected mode for when we do a TDC depress. We're currently in PID, which means we'll do a TWS. PID is this aircraft's version of TWS. But I have a toggle switch on my stick. It's called the STT TWS toggle. If I tap that, I can go into PIC, and PIC is this aircraft's equivalent of STT. So now if I was to depress my TDC on a target, I would immediately go into an STT. Yeah, I'm going to leave it in PID for now. We then have own aircraft information at the bottom, current airspeed 430 knots, Mach number 0.9, and our current altitude in thousands and hundreds. So we're currently at 19,800 feet. We also have information alongside the cursor. The big number on the left-hand side of the cursor is the range at the cursor. So that's 40 miles. I can bump it out. There's 50. And then we also have the extents of the scan. At this cursor position, the radar is scanning between a maximum of 37,000 feet and a minimum of 8,000 feet. So that's the same kind of information you get in most aircraft. The other thing we have is information against a preset waypoint here. 00 is on-ship location. So current cursor position is actually giving us that the cursor is 61 miles from our aircraft and 318 bearing. However, we have this switch down here, target bearing, no, it's not that one, I want N, sorry. The N switch, the bullseye waypoint selector, if I had an INS waypoint which was co-located with the bullseye, I could switch to that waypoint, and then I would be able to call out bullseye information based on the cursor position, and that's kind of handy. So I could put my cursor over here and I could say, oh, I've picked something up, bullseye, 158 miles, 341. So that's what that's for. I'm going to pop it back down to 00 though for own aircraft position. So that's all the basic symbology here. You'll notice these V symbols appear. These are the actual target indications, and we're going to cover them in just a moment. But a quick thing to note is that when it's a V, that's a target with closure, with positive closure. In other words, it's getting closer. If it becomes an upturned V, like the V is pointing away from us, that's a receding target, and that's an aircraft that's pulling away, getting further away from us. Another thing to note is that we can hit RD, and our currently selected waypoint will also appear on here. But our currently selected waypoint, I think, is behind us. Yeah, the HSI says it's behind us. We also have this switch here, actually, which is kind of fun. It selects whether you're viewing a forward image. So this is everything that's in front of us. If I flip it aft, it will actually give a 360 degrees representation, and there we go. There's our waypoint down here, this little cross, which is moving away. This mode doesn't display radar contacts. It's only used for displaying waypoints, for displaying targets that you've programmed into the system as intended targets. You can actually do that using these buttons along the side, but we'll cover that another time. And it will also display data link targets. But generally you want this switch in the forwards position, and it will display a normal image. So, moving on, let's take a little look at the left-hand console, where we have all of the radar's controls here. This is the primary set of controls for the radar. We're going to start at the front and work our way back. The first thing we have is the radar channels A and B. If I zoom out a little bit here, you might be able to see how these work. Top right, we've got currently 9.7. I can move the left-hand one, and you'll see we get flashing indications for what our new channel would be. Channel A is basically like your tens, and channel B is your units. So let's change our radar to operate on 3.4, and then we press validate, and that will then switch the radar's channel. Like I said, this is only important if you're flying with other Mirages. If you're on the same channel, you will interfere with each other. Next one we have here is the radar rearm button. If for some reason your radar gets into a funny state, you can press this button and it will completely reset the radar. You'll see we've got radar slash, so the radar is off, right, well, not emitting at least, it's offline right now. And basically the radar computer is rebooting, and there you go. It's back up and running again, and that can be used if ever you think the radar is in some strange state. You have this switch here for the Doppler reject. We can go forwards to say that we want to use the Doppler reject. We can go into the middle to set it to automatic, and we can go to the aft to turn off Doppler reject. And there, straight away, you can see the effect of not having Doppler reject. And we start picking up lots of ground features or other strange things. Actually, I wonder what those are. Are those clouds? Hard to say. Anyway, most of the time you're just going to run this in automatic. There may be situations where you want to adjust that. Keep in mind that the Doppler notch is around about 50 nautical miles closure rate. So if an aircraft is at 50 nautical miles closure or less, then you're going to lose them with the Doppler reject on. You might need to turn it off to then find them, but then note that you're going to get a lot of false contacts. So anyway, let's leave it in automatic. And we have the gain control. Now the gain control doesn't do anything in high frequency modes, but if we use the PRF switch, which I'll cover in a moment, if we put it into the low PRF, you can then actually use the gain and actually just get raw radar returns. We've then got the main radar power switch. It can be in arrêt for off, it can be in preheat, it can be in silence, where it continues to sweep but it's not actually emitting, or it can be in emit, and that's it in its full normal operating mode. There's a test switch. I don't think it actually does anything. I've never seen it do anything. We then have DEC. This is used for terrain avoidance. We won't be covering this today. And there's Visu mode, which is the ground mapping mode. We also won't be covering this today. We have this switch here, which is the radar grid selector. We can be in PPI, which is like basically polar mode. You'll note that this is quite different from the kind of NATO radars. If we switch it into B-scope mode, then we get a display that's basically exactly the same as what you'd have in the F-16 or the F-18. It flattens out the display into a more square B-scope. But the norm for the Mirage is to have it in PPI and to actually have it display the curvature. We have this button here for the hardened clutter gate. Normally this is off, but if you find yourself getting a lot of false contacts, you can turn this on and it will further reduce the likelihood of picking up false contacts. You can also set what your cursor mode is in. It has S and Z positions. In S mode it displays the maximum and minimum altitude at the cursor. In Z mode it displays the middle altitude at the cursor. I don't know why that's important, but I would pretty much always have this in S because that's more like the way that other radars work. We have the persistence mode. It's actually labeled remanence. Normally it's off, but we can turn it on and it will display, you see you get an A here when you do that, it will display the normal radar symbols, but it'll also display 2 bricks as well for the prior 2 positions of that contact. That can be useful in some situations, especially if you're trying to figure out which are false contacts. We then have the PRF selector. We can be in HFR, which is the standard high frequency mode, and that's the mode you need to be in really in order to get the normal symbols. We can go into an interleaved mode where we'll do 1 high frequency scan and then 1 low frequency scan, or we can just put it into low frequency. Now in low frequency you cannot lock any of the targets, they will just produce raw brick style returns, you won't get symbols. So this mode is kind of less useful, but there may be situations where you need that. Standard position is to have it in HFR. We then got the number of bars for our bar scan. We're currently in 2. We have options to do 4 bar, 2 bar, or 1 bar, depending on how much elevation, what kind of space of altitude you want. You can see here on a 1 bar out at 28 miles, I'm scanning between 24,000 and 15,000 feet. In many cases, that's probably fine. Here we've got a distance selector. Like I said before, you can bump the ranges using the cursor, or alternatively you can use this control to flip it back all the way down to 10 and forwards all the way up to 320. I'm going to pop this back to 40 right now. PSIC is a toggle to allow you to toggle between PIC and PID. You'll note that that's also on the Hotas. I normally just use my Hotas control. You have that duplicated down here. And then you have the azimuth scan. We're currently in 60. Oh, actually, I hit the wrong button there. We're currently in 60. We can drop it to 30 degrees, as indicated here, or you can drop it all the way down to 15. You'll see the arc indicated here, showing you what you're actually scanning. Of course, in 1 bar and 15 degrees, you're going to get the most rapid target updates. But if you need a wider scan, you can pop it all the way out to 60. And those are all of the standard radar controls here on the left-hand console. We then, of course, have a bunch of controls on your Hotas. And the standard controls you're going to use here, of course, your TDC to move the cursor. You also have this thing called the weapon command switch. Now, depressing the weapon command switch will always put you back into this standard BVR mode. Moving the switch forwards will put you into the close combat modes and allow you to switch between horizontal and vertical scans. So I'm tapping that now. Tap it again. Tap it again. So that's a vertical mode. That's a horizontal mode. I'm now going to depress weapon command and put us back into a normal mode. And then if we pull it aft, we go into the bore sight scan mode. That's really all we can do there. We've got BAH and BAZ modes there. We're ignoring those today, though. We will cover those in more detail in another in another tutorial. But if I depress the CMD switch, it will put me back into the BVR mode, and also if I had something locked, depressing it would break the lock. Nose wheel steering would be the last one to note. The nose wheel steering button, if I tap that, it will do an IFF scan. You'll see that I got an extra sweep there, and it went dotted, it went solid, and then it disappeared. And if there were aircraft in front of me, I would get IFF returns from them. But we'll demonstrate that in just a moment. So that's the display, the controls in the left console, and the controls on the Hotas. Now let's practice actually looking up some targets and seeing what information we get. Okay, we're back in the aircraft now. I've reset the simulation, and you can now see a series of radar contacts showing up on the display. I'll now go over the standard symbology for these radar contacts. So as you can see, as per the display here, we've got our INS waypoint to our front. We have 40 nautical miles displayed as the range. We're doing a 2-bar scan, and we're doing a full 60 degrees of azimuth scan here. Now, all of the contacts you can see here are V's pointing downwards. That means that all of them have positive closure rates. They're all targets which are approaching us or reducing in range. If any of these V's were pointing away, these would be receding targets, targets with negative closure rates. On the right-hand side, we have the airspeed for the target in Mach. So we've got a couple of aircraft here travelling at Mach 0.3, and then we've got some targets here all apparently travelling at Mach 1.1. The other thing to note is that there's also information displayed telling you which bar these were detected in. So these targets where we've got a line on the bottom, that means they were detected on the bottom bar, or in this case bar 2 of a 2-bar scan. If it was a 4-bar scan, that would be bar 4. If we have a line on the top of the V, that's a target that was detected on the very first bar, so in this case bar 1. In a 4-bar scan, that would still be bar 1. If you don't get a bar on the top or the bottom, that means they were detected in one of the middle bars, i.e. 2 or 3 in a 4-bar scan. Doesn't apply here to a 2-bar scan though. This is important because the radar quite commonly duplicates targets. So I happen to know this group here is actually a 2-ship, yet I'm actually displaying 4 symbols. But because I can see one of them is in the bottom bar and one of them is in the top bar, and they're basically co-located, I can figure out myself that these are in fact the same target. Other thing to note is that we're currently in PID. That means that when we depress the TDC, we'll actually get a track while scan. So let's demonstrate that now. We're going to come out of pause. We're still in active pause right now. Going to move the TDC over one of these and depress, and we actually have it locked up. Let's now go ahead and pause again, yeah, we have these all locked up, and we are in TWS in effect. Now some extra information appears. Across the top of the radar, we now have information about our target. So we know that our target is flying at Mach 0.5. We know that he's flying a heading of 350. We know our closure rate is currently 175 knots, 74 knots, sorry. And we know his altitude in thousands and hundreds, so he's currently at Angels 20, or 20,000 feet. So all of that information is appearing here. You also have the closure rate repeated here, but kind of rounded up into tens. And then we also have an arrow showing the aircraft's direction of travel, and the range, again, is repeated here. So this target is 26 miles away. It's 180 knots closure, flying heading 350, and the velocity vector is there. Having these 2 lines here tell us that that's the target that's locked, and then we get this long line giving us a bearing directly to the target. You'll also see the antenna position here as that gap. If I come out, you can see that the aircraft is continuing to scan, so we're getting updates for these other targets as well. However, it's dedicating a scan to the bugged target as well. I could now depress my nose wheel steering. Let me do it again and actually pause. Boop, there we go. Okay, I'm pausing it right there. You can see the second bar, which means that we're sending out an IFF ping. You can see diamonds. There are 2 diamonds here showing that we got 2 positive IFF returns. These are in fact friendly aircraft. Note, there is no return from these 2 groups at all. That confirms that they are hostile. So that's good to know. Let's go ahead and depress the weapon command switch, and that breaks the lock. Well, actually, we never were locked. It breaks the TWS bug. Let's actually drop the range to 20. We'll get a better view on these targets here. And let's actually grab one of the ones from over here. Nope, I lost him. He just went outside of the 60 azimuth. That's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to engage in a right turn and see if we can bring them back into the radar scan volume. And there they are. So I'm going to go ahead and depress on one of those and actually drop the range again a little bit. And I'm going to pause again, and you can see here that we've got some more information here. This aircraft is at range 3.8 nautical miles, so very, very close indeed. We've got a closure rate of 685 knots. There's his heading. He's flying at 0.7 Mach, and he's at exactly Angels 20. And PSIC means we're about to lose TWS. Basically, what it's warning us is that we should really switch to a single target track if we want to maintain this target, because it's getting too difficult to track. I'm going to leave that running, and you're going to see that we're going to drop that contact any moment now, and there he is. He's gone. Okay, let's bump the range back out to 40 again, and see if we can pick up our original targets. And actually, I'm going to make a turn back round to the left again. And there we go. There's our original group. I'm now going to switch from PID to PIC, and I'm going to do a single target track on one of these aircraft, just for fun. There we go. Single target track. Symbology here is basically the same, but the thing to note is that we now also have NTCR. So we have NCTR, I apologise, non-cooperative target recognition. Usually it's only going to work when you're closer towards the target, and usually it works best when you're head-to-head with the other aircraft, but it would then give you aircraft type down here. And yeah, there's our waypoint again, showing up nicely. So, again, I can depress weapon command, and now I'm going to do a complete 180 turn and see if we can pick up our other aircraft group again. And I'm just using Autopilot for this, by the way, so that I can retain myself heads down. I'm going to bump the range down to 20. Also, be aware that I have persistence turned on right now, so sometimes you're seeing bricks. They're just confirming previous locations for the targets that we've brought up. Okay, letting the heading come all the way around, picking up various other random aircraft. Also note that you have artificial horizon information here. That's my aircraft symbol, and that's the horizon line. So that makes it easy for me to keep track of exactly what I'm doing. I'm actually going to turn the persistence off just now. It can be a little bit distracting. And let's wait for the aircraft to complete its turn. Hopefully we'll pick up our enemy aircraft again. That looks like maybe we're not going to go to F10. Yes, they're actually all flying east now. So that's fine. I will actually make a turn all the way around to 09 or 0 in that case. Then I should pick up those targets again. Nice. Okay. I'm going to wait for that turn to complete. And there we go. We're getting some symbols again. And actually, while we're doing that, let me demonstrate the low frequency mode of the radar. So we're going to push this switch all the way back into BVR. And when we're in this mode, you're going to notice that we just get raw returns in the event that we can actually see targets at all, that is. This mode has a shorter range, but it can be useful in the event that you're having a lot of interference or just a hard time picking out those targets. Well, actually, that said, I'm not picking these aircraft up at all in this mode right now. So let's put it back into HFR, and there we go. Straight away we get some symbols. Let's grab one of these aircraft and single target track it. Got it, and there you go. Straight away, MiG-29, because it's actually flying towards us. So we pretty much immediately got a good... we pretty much immediately got a good return there. And actually, I was wrong before when I said that this was the closure rate rounded. It's actually the aspect. So we can see, actually, this aircraft is hot. It's only 10 degrees off of a direct heading onto us. So that's worth noting. Currently at 7.7 nautical miles. So that's actually everything to cover in the basics of the operation of the RDI radar. I hope that you all enjoyed that. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and comment. It's a really big help to me and to the channel. Also, if you'd like to support the channel further, you have the option of joining DeepHack's ground crew by pressing the join button below for a small monthly fee. Thank you very much to those of you who've already done so. Big shout out to Harish Rajan, Byron Farrow, Storm Kimbari, Channel Wright, Mangash, J.R. Walker, Chandro Hedgevald, Griff Nizzle, Mr. Yeti, Frantic Stone, Bread, Tier Zero, Erdin Kirtan, Belly Tapani Corpicanas, Tiger Moto, Mitch, Mike Delta, Plucky Underdog, Folt Raver, Guitar Junkie 14, Sean I Am 81, Charts, and Pink Floyd. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.